The knock on the door came just as Noah Mercer was helping his 6-year-old daughter wash paint off her tiny hands after an afternoon of making cardboard castles in the living room. Outside, the late afternoon sun painted the apartment hallway gold, but the sound of that knock carried something heavy inside it. Desperate. Shaking. The kind of sound people made when they had nowhere else left to go. When Noah opened the door, his neighbor stood there trembling. Myra Holloway looked nothing like the confident woman who always rushed past his apartment every morning in pressed office clothes with coffee in one hand and car keys in the other. Her mascara had run down her cheeks. One heel was broken. Her arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to keep from falling apart completely. And then, barely above a whisper, she said the words that made Noah's chest tighten instantly. "Please, don't leave me alone tonight." Before we continue this emotional story, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Unlimited if you believe kindness and second chances can still change someone's life. Stories like this remind us that even strangers can become family when the world feels cold. Noah had spent the last 4 years learning how to survive heartbreak quietly. Ever since his wife passed away during complications after surgery, his world had narrowed into something painfully small and carefully organized. Work at the auto repair garage during the day. Pick up Ava from school. Make dinner. Help with homework. Repeat. He avoided emotional risks because he could barely hold together the life he already had. But standing there in the hallway, watching Myra fight tears she clearly didn't want anyone to see, he couldn't close the door. He stepped aside without asking questions. Inside the apartment, the smell of grilled cheese and tomato soup still floated through the air. Ava sat cross-legged on the carpet surrounded by crayons, looking up curiously with wide eyes. Myra immediately apologized for showing up unexpectedly, but her voice cracked halfway through the sentence. Noah noticed her hand shaking so badly she could barely hold the glass of water he handed her. The story slowly came out in broken pieces while evening sunlight faded through the windows. Myra had gone on a date with someone she met online after months of loneliness following a difficult breakup. The man had seemed charming at first. Successful. Funny. Safe. But during dinner his personality shifted. He became controlling, angry, and aggressive when she tried to leave early. He followed her to the parking lot, grabbed her wrist hard enough to bruise it, and screamed at her in front of strangers before speeding away. She had made it home physically unharmed, but emotionally shattered. And when she entered her empty apartment across the hall, the silence terrified her more than the man had. Noah listened quietly while Ava climbed beside Myra on the couch and innocently offered her a stuffed rabbit with one missing eye. That tiny gesture broke something open inside Myra completely. Tears poured down her face as she held the toy tightly against her chest like it was the first kindness she'd felt in years. The apartment grew softer as night settled in. Noah made extra soup. Ava insisted everyone watch cartoons together. Slowly, Myra's breathing steadied. But Noah noticed something else too. Beneath her fear lived exhaustion, the kind carried by people who spent too long pretending they were okay. As the hours passed, Myra admitted that her life looked perfect from the outside but felt painfully empty inside. Her career in corporate marketing paid well, yet every day felt mechanical. She hadn't spoken to her parents in years after family conflicts. Most of her friendships had faded into social media reactions and birthday texts. The date tonight had been her desperate attempt to stop feeling invisible. Noah understood loneliness better than most people. After losing his wife, friends slowly stopped calling because grief made them uncomfortable. He remembered sitting awake at 2 in the morning many nights after Ava slept, staring at walls that felt unbearably silent. He knew how dangerous loneliness could become when it convinced people they were completely alone in the world. Around 8 o'clock, rain began tapping softly against the windows. Ava eventually fell asleep curled beside Myra on the couch, clutching the stuffed rabbit between them. Noah stood in the kitchen watching them from a distance, feeling something unfamiliar settle into the room. Warmth. Not romance. Not yet. Just human connection. Real and fragile. For the first time in months, the apartment didn't feel haunted by absence. Myra quietly confessed she'd almost driven out of town earlier that evening just to escape everything she was feeling. The fear. The humiliation. The crushing emptiness afterward. She admitted she had sat in her car crying for nearly an hour before finally knocking on Noah's door because his apartment was the only place in the building that still sounded alive. Those words stayed with Noah deeply. Because sometimes people are not searching for solutions. Sometimes they are simply searching for proof that warmth still exists somewhere nearby. As midnight approached, Noah spread blankets across the couch and insisted Myra stay the night instead of returning to her empty apartment alone. She resisted at first, embarrassed by her vulnerability, but eventually agreed. Before heading to his bedroom, Noah noticed Myra staring at the family photo sitting near the television. It showed Noah holding baby Ava beside his late wife at a county fair years ago. There was sadness in Myra's expression, but also longing. Not for romance. For belonging. The next morning arrived bright and golden after the storm. Sunlight poured through the curtains while Ava danced around the kitchen demanding pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. Myra laughed for the first time since arriving, a real laugh that sounded almost surprised to exist. Noah watched carefully from the stove as color slowly returned to her face. And in that ordinary morning, something extraordinary happened. Nobody felt alone. Over the following weeks, small routines formed naturally. Myra started joining Noah and Ava for evening walks after work. Sometimes she brought groceries. Sometimes she helped Ava with art projects at the kitchen table. Noah repaired the loose shelf in Myra's apartment. Ava began calling her Miss Myra with childlike affection. The hallway between their apartments slowly stopped feeling like a separation and started feeling like a bridge. Healing did not arrive dramatically. It arrived quietly through shared dinners, laughter, repaired trust, and human kindness. One evening months later, Myra confessed something while sitting beside Noah at the playground watching Ava chase pigeons through orange sunset light. She admitted that the night she knocked on his door, she truly believed nobody would answer. She had prepared herself for rejection before she even knocked. But that single act of compassion changed the direction of her life. Noah looked toward his daughter laughing under the fading sky and realized something too. Saving people rarely looks heroic. Sometimes it looks like opening a door. Sometimes it looks like making soup. Sometimes it simply means refusing to let someone suffer alone. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video with someone who may need hope today. Your support helps Kindness Unlimited continue sharing emotional stories that remind people compassion still exists in this world. And before this story ends, tell us in the comments, have you ever experienced a moment when one small act of kindness changed your life forever? That night, long after Myra first whispered those desperate words through tears in the hallway, Noah finally understood something grief had hidden from him for years. Broken people do not always need rescuing. Sometimes they only need a light left on long enough to find their way back to themselves. And on the other side of one ordinary apartment door, 3 lonely hearts slowly became a family no one expected, but all of them desperately needed.